Before we get to your calls and your texts and your tweets, I want to talk about it's the cancellation of women, really. It's going on my nerves. It makes me more angry by the day. All of this stuff, about people with cervixes, people who menstruate, people who get pregnant. It's always against women. It's never against men. You never hear the phrase, do you? Oh, but people with prostrates, or sort of people with prostates, people with testicles. You never hear that, do you? It's always people with cervix. It's always against women. Why are we cancelling women and not men? Let's cancel everyone. Why not? People love it. But the most really egregious example of this is in the pipeline. So, we get a census form every 10 years, isn't it? The first year of every decade, 2001, 2011. So I guess the next one will be 2031. Anyway, it is proposed that in this census form, obviously one of the basic questions is, are you male or are you female? MF, which do you tick? Not so. If the woke warriors have their way in the next census form, we will all be asked, do you menstruate? I think I might answer, yeah, I'm not sure. I might take it up fairly soon. Come on, it's ridiculous. Let's talk to the co-director of for Women Scotland, Susan Smith. Hello, Susan.
Hello.
This is my point, Susan. This is sexist, isn't it? Why? What are the authorities? What has the establishment got against the words woman or women? Why do they keep trying to cancel it?
You're absolutely right. This affects women, and it's usually targeted at women. This is the only group who are ending up being hurt by all of this rubbish. Ultimately, the census idea that you referred to has actually come out of this project, which took over £500,000 of public money to come up with this idea that, it's basically equivalent to saying the moon is made of green cheese, throwing taxpayers' money at something to prove something that's nonsensical. And they've come up with this idea that you should get rid of legal sex and we should have different ways of talking about things. And they've worked backwards from this strange conclusion, which is a correct conclusion, that people often encounter sexism and gendered expectations because of their sex. But rather than saying, okay, this is bad, we need to try and change how people see men and women in society, they've said, we need to pretend this doesn't exist.
Yeah.
And we only talk about these gendered expectations. We actually make these sexist ideas real. And we ask people how they're perceived at work and whether performing gender stereotypes makes them more vulnerable to discrimination. And that's a nonsense. That's what we should be working to dismantle rather than to cement into law.
So this proposed change to the census form, which will cut out the what I would have thought was a fundamental basic question, are you a male or are you a female? Instead, we'll be asked, do you menstruate? Well, why not turn it on its head? Doesn't the form say, do you have a prostate?
It probably will have to. Because
I bet it won't, though. It won't, though. It will be against women. It's this syndrome never affects men. They never try to cancel the word man, but they're always trying to cancel the word woman. My question to you, Susan, is why? Why?
I think because the people who don't want to be women and who identify as being men still remain women and are still sort of treated as lesser. But the people who want to be women have got a lot of influence and heft, and they're the people who are being listened to by a lot of these organisations. They have a lot of power instead, and they are the people who are saying, we want to be women, therefore we don't want this word to be reserved anymore to this old-fashioned group of people who happen to be female. And it's, and there is still inequality, and unfortunately women still don't. But we won a legal case quite recently about the definition of the word women in Scotland. the Scottish government were trying to change it, and we won a legal case. And I think that people just keep finding different ways into this.
They do. You're right.
They say, "I'll change the word women," and then you manage to put a block on that, so they come back and go, "Let's just get rid of sex entirely. We won't have any such thing as sex anymore. We'll just use women to refer to people who wear a dress or have long hair." And so they're constantly trying to chip away at all of these things. We had a census this year in Scotland because the Scottish government decided in their infinite wisdom that they were going to defer it for a year. And unlike in England and Wales, where Fair Play for Women won a case that said sex had to refer to biology, our census went ahead on the basis of self-declaration. Our census has been an unmitigated disaster, even though Angus Robertson has claimed it was a success, but it's been extended, the deadline has been extended twice. It's currently sitting at about an 87% return, which is way below the 94% necessary for planning services and far below the 97% that happened in England and Wales. And one of the issues around it was that people found it complicated and they weren't sure what half of these questions were about. So if you start to get rid of sex, which during evidence that we gave to committee and other people gave to committee, it came out that the sex question is the single most important data point, according to the data users. If you get rid of that, I don't think people will fill it in. We've already seen, as I say, in Scotland, people aren't bothering if they think it's a piece of nonsense.
Yeah. Well, what about this? The NHS, this is an official policy now that everyone who goes for an X-ray, and I mean everyone, has to be asked if they're pregnant. So this is not going down well with 45-year-old builders with beer guts and beards, but they are being asked if they are pregnant, and they're going, well, no, because I'm a bloke. This is madness, isn't it?
It is, and the reason that happens in the NHS is that the NHS has let people change their sex marker. So the NHS, sex is really important in healthcare. Men and women have different types of heart attacks.
Absolutely.
So you need to know what sex someone is. And in the States, because of all this nonsense, there were 2 cases where trans men, again, women, ended up nearly dying because they'd come in saying that they were men. And in one case, they got the wrong, because it was a kidney failure and they weren't registering on the same, that the levels for men and women are different. And in another case, this person who said they were a man actually was pregnant and miscarried and nearly died. And so it's really important. And if you let people change their sex markers, you are opening up potential risks. So it's the reason the NHS are asking these stupid questions is because they've allowed people to lie. And people know what sex they are, even if they don't want to be that sex. There are only two choices, and you know which one is relevant. So rather than trying to go into these really convoluted, silly questions, you just need to tell people that on those occasions when it's important, just tell the truth.
Absolutely. Susan, great to talk to you. Thank you so much for your time. Susan Smith, co-director of 4 Women in Scotland. I'm Kevin O'Sullivan. This is Talk TV Live.